Fontaine, Oscar winner, Hitchcock blonde, one half of Hollywood's most legendary sibling feud. But beyond the fame and the headlines of her rivalry with sister Olivia de Havilland, Fontaine was a mother to two daughters, each with a story as complex and intriguing as any film script. Number 2. Martita Pareja, Calderón, born on November 3, 1946. In 1951, when Martita was about 4 or 5, Joan Fontaine encountered her during a trip to Peru. Fontaine herself said she was captivated by Martita and wanted to bring her back to California as a sister for Deborah, a small friend for me. Publicity photos from the early 50s show Joan with a young Martita holding a doll at the Miami airport or together in Madrid. But behind this image, the adoption was fraught with issues. Critics later described it as impulsive, just like acquiring a human souvenir. There were even uncorroborated claims that Fontaine had promised Martita's biological parents to return her to Peru when she turned 16. While there was some initial Peruvian legal paperwork for guardianship, a crucial problem emerged. The adoption was never formally validated in the United States. This legal limbo would have devastating consequences. In 1963, when Martita was about 16 or 17, she ran away from home. When Joan Fontaine found her, she was reportedly refused contact with the child on the premise that her Peruvian adoption was not valid in the U.S. Some accounts are even harsher, alleging Fontaine publicly disowned her or even attempted to have the frightened girl deported back to Peru. Records from Boston University, which holds Joan Fontaine's papers, show a document where Joan Fontaine formally relinquished her guardianship of Martita. After this dramatic break, Martita's life took a significant turn. She went to live with a couple in Kennebunkport, Maine, Robert and Christine Howes. This is where her story shifts from Hollywood turmoil to a quest for stability. Martita became deeply integrated into the Howes family. She also adopted new names, becoming known as Martita Valentina, and later, through marriage, Martita Regaluth, and also Martita Merrill Kidman, her husband in Maine being Merrill Kidman. The obituaries for Robert and Christine Howes list Martita Valentina, Merrill Kidman, as their beloved daughter living in York or Hollis, Maine. This strongly suggests she found a true sense of family and belonging with the Howes, far from the spotlight. Despite the earlier, very public estrangement, several sources, including Joan Fontaine's secretary and friend Susan Pfeiffer, state that Martita and Joan reconciled in later years. They reportedly wrote and talked on the phone to each other quite often, and Martita even visited Joan at her Carmel home. Pfeiffer insisted the rift healed and healed well, and that Joan loved both of her girls and saved all their cards and letters. Joan Fontaine's 1978 autobiography, No Bed of Roses, offered her own perspective on the adoption, but it was met with heavy criticism. Her ex-husband William Dozier, Deborah's father, reportedly quipped the book should have been titled No Shred of Truth. This suggests Fontaine's public narrative may have been self-serving or incomplete. When Joan Fontaine died in 2013, Martita was notably absent from the list of immediate survivors in most obituaries. Given the invalid U.S. adoption and the formal relinquishment of guardianship, Martita likely had no legal claim as an heir to Fontaine's estate, which largely benefited the SPCA. The personal reconciliation, however heartwarming, didn't change the early legal realities. Martita Pareja, Calderón's journey is one of dramatic upheaval and quiet resilience, ultimately finding her own peace and family far from the Hollywood. A number 1, Deborah Dozier, Potter, born November 5, 1948 in Santa Monica, was Joan Fontaine's biological daughter, with her then-husband film and television executive William Dozier, famous for producing the 1960s Batman TV series. Deborah's arrival was pure Hollywood. Joan was 5 months pregnant with her while filming You Gotta Stay Happy. Her early childhood was marked by her parents' divorce when she was just over 2 years old. Growing up with a mother as famous and reportedly complex as Joan Fontaine wasn't easy. Fontaine's own autobiography describes a strained relationship with Deborah, with some critics noting Fontaine detailed the effective abandonment of both her daughters and their teens. Deborah's extensive correspondence with her mother, housed at Boston University, hints at this complex, evolving dynamic. A significant counterpoint to her relationship with her mother was Deborah's exceptionally close and loving bond with her aunt, Olivia de Havilland, Joan Fontaine's estranged sister. This relationship spanned an incredible 64 years. Deborah described Olivia as warm, gracious, and a mentor. Even a second-hand quote from an acquaintance claimed Deborah loves her Aunt Olivia and can't stand her mother. After Joan's death, Olivia and Deborah conferred and issued a joint statement. In her own remembrance of Olivia, Deborah painted a critical picture of Joan, describing her as glib and the instigator of the final argument that severed the sisters' communication. This deep bond with Olivia likely provided Deborah with a vital source of stability and affection. Deborah's father, William Dozier, also seems to have been a significant and positive influence. In her memoir, Let Buster Leard, Deborah explicitly links the period of adopting her beloved border collie Buster to her cynicism and grief following the death of her father in 1991, suggesting a deep attachment. Educated at Marymount High School and later focusing on English, psychology, and drama in college, Deborah initially tried acting in the early 1970s, with roles in TV shows like Gunsmoke and TV movies like Playmates. However, she soon found her preference was for helping others, transitioning to a successful career as an agent for young actors, eventually establishing her own talent agency. She represented notable actors like Scott Glenn and Danny Glover, continuing this work even after moving to Santa Fe, New Mexico, in search of a regular environment. She retired from the film business in 1989. In Santa Fe, Deborah married Earl Potter, an attorney, on September 22, 1979, and they raised 2 sons. She became deeply involved in the community, co-founding Santa Fe's Plaza Community Stage, serving on the Kennedy Center's President's Advisory Council on the Arts, and as a trustee for a college, an orchestra, and 2 museums. A defining chapter of Deborah's life is her courageous battle with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, following a serious horse accident. Her journey to healing, with the incredible help of her service dog, Buster, whom she adopted after her father's death, became the subject of her acclaimed 2007 memoir, Let Buster Lead, Discovering Love, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, and Self-Acceptance. The book is an honest and brave narrative about trauma, recovery, and the extraordinary human-animal bond. A portion of the book's proceeds supports animal shelters and therapy dog organizations. Through her writing and advocacy, Deborah has become a voice for those struggling with PTSD. When Joan Fontaine passed away, Deborah was listed as a survivor. While the specifics of her inheritance aren't detailed in the provided materials, her focus has clearly been on her own healing, her family in Santa Fe, and her community contributions. What are your thoughts on the journeys of Martita and Deborah? Share them in the comments below.